Hello, everyone. It seems like relations between India and the US are back to normal.
Well, I'll always be friends with Modi. He's great. Prime Minister.
Trump made some very positive remarks about India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, just this past week. Modi immediately replied back, forgetting all the insults of the past 4 months. Then a couple of days later, Marco Rubio had some very nice things to say about India as well.
I would say one of the top relationships the United States.
He called India a special ally of the US. All this happened after Modi, like a jilted lover, flew to China to attend the SCO summit and had this picture with Xi Jinping and Putin, which went viral. That prompted Trump to maybe extend an olive branch to Modi. So the question arises, is everything between India and the US, are relations back to normal? Because it seems like there's still something lurking beneath the surface. And Trump is still mad at Modi. So the question arises, why is Trump mad at Modi? There are 2 reasons for it. One is personal, the other one is political. Let's explore the personal reason first. For that, we have to go back in time to September 2019, Houston, Texas. The rally is called Howdy, Modi. Both Trump and Modi are on the stage, where Modi triumphantly boasts Ab ki baar Trump Sarkar in front of a 50,000 audience made up of primarily Indian Americans. This loosely translates to, this time round, it will be Trump's government, which did not happen. Biden won the 2020 election, and Modi was left red-faced in front of the new administration. Fast forward 5 years, September 2024. Modi is again in the US, and his team reaches out to both Kamala Harris and to Donald Trump for a meeting. Kamala Harris refuses for some reason. So Modi, having learned the lesson from 5 years ago, backs off from a planned meeting with Donald Trump, which was smart, but Donald Trump took this as a personal slight. Now, let's go to February 2025, this year. Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India is one of the first world leaders to be invited to the White House. But diplomats with him privately comment that Trump treated him disdainfully, almost disrespectfully. And now we come a little closer in time to May 2025, just 3 months ago. There's a terrorist attack in Pahalgam, in Indian-occupied Kashmir, which India roundly blames on Pakistan without providing any evidence whatsoever. And then 2 weeks later, the Indian Air Force proceeds to lob missiles at a mosque in Bhavalpur, a city in Pakistan. The same night, largest air battle is being fought. The largest air battle in modern history, modern combat history after World War II. And the Pakistani Air Force downs 6 Indian jets, 4 of which were Rafales, the jewel in the crown of the Indian Air Force.
We are here at Akaliya Khurd village of Bathinda, where the crash has taken place.
ਲਾਲ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਅੱਗ ਲੱਗੀ ਹੋਈ ਸੀ ਬਸ ਇੱਕ ਅੱਧਾ ਮਿੰਟ 'ਚ ਇਹ ਜਾ ਪਿਆ ਸੀ ਇਹਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਵੱਡਾ ਧਮਾਕਾ.
Now, this so-called war, or conflagration if you may, it goes on for the next 4 days. On the last day, India lobs a missile at Pakistan's Noor Khan Air Base. And in response, there's such a barrage of missiles from Pakistan.
Pakistan responded with a relentless, a massive barrage of missiles and rockets. Reached out to Secretary Rubio, reached out to the Saudis, reached out to the Turks, reached out to others to find a diplomatic off-ramp, got engaged after that onslaught.
That Nick Robertson of CNN, a war correspondent, claims that his sources who were present in the same room where Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance were working the phones to bring this conflict to an end. That source says that the Indian officials were pleading, almost begging the United States to intervene and stop Pakistan from escalating further. And this is exactly what the US did. A couple of hours later, Donald Trump tweeted that he had successfully brought this conflict to a resolution. He thanked the leaders of both India and Pakistan but obviously claimed the credit for himself. And not only did he do it once, he did it 30 or 40 more times.
We helped a lot. I said, come on, we're going to do a lot of trade with you guys. Let's stop it. Let's stop it. So I'm very proud of that. I stopped 5 wars in the last 5 months, actually, including India and Pakistan, and I could go over the whole list, but you know the list as well as I do. We just ended a war in 12 days that was simmering for 30 years, frankly. But maybe the most important of all, India and Pakistan, Israel and Iran. I ended that with a series of phone calls on trade. I said, look. They were ready to go. Maybe nuclear, we solved that. I've solved 6 wars in the last 6 months. You know, when you think of all of the victories, we stopped 5 nations from going to war.
He claims to have ended 6 wars, out of which this one, between the 2 nuclear-armed South Asian neighbors, was the biggest, and one which he was most proud of. But the Indians did not take to this very nicely. Even though in private they cajoled and they pleaded with the Americans to end this war, but in public they repudiated Trump's claims of ending this war. This might not have sat right with Donald Trump, because this was not only disingenuous on India's part, but Trump always likes to be pandered to, and especially for something which actually happened, something for some place, a situation where he really had a very important part to play. Pakistan thanked him profusely, and Pakistani leadership also nominated him for, the first ones to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize. A month later, in June, 2 months ago, Donald Trump invited Pakistan's Field Marshal Munir for a luncheon. At the same time, Modi was flying back from Canada from the G7 summit back to India. Trump also called them at the same time. He possibly wanted a photo op with both these leaders, which would have made him look good. So Modi refused, and he flew back to India directly. Since then, Trump has been very, very belligerent against India. The anti-India rhetoric is just growing, and not just him personally, but other officials in his cabinet, Peter Navarro, Scott Bessent, they're criticizing India almost every day.
This Indian, what I would call the Indian arbitrage, buying cheap Russian oil, reselling it as product, has just sprung up during the war, which is unacceptable.
India basically has to open their market, has to stop buying Russian oil.
Now, let's come to the political aspect of this decision to tariff India, because these personal reasons cannot have directly led to Trump's decision to impose tariffs. There obviously are political reasons. But the personal reason is important as well. Because if Trump really wanted India to stop buying Russian oil, all he had to do was politely ask the Indians and they would have complied. Now, to explore the political reasons, it's well understood that Russia's economy is almost completely commodity dependent. I mean, it is oil sales which fuel its war campaign in Ukraine. Over here, the US and the EU, they're in a limbo. They're in between a rock and a hard place. They cannot completely stop Russian oil sales, because if they do so, oil prices would skyrocket and there'd be massive supply side inflation. But at the same time, they do want to put pressure on Russia, because Trump really, really wants the Ukrainian conflict to end. Because he really, really, really wants to clinch the Nobel Peace Prize.
I should have gotten it 4 or 5 times.
In this situation, India is being used as a pawn, is being used as a tool to make Russia back off from Ukraine. Now, Indian observers and commentators from India, even Indian officials, very innocently ask, why is India being singled out? Now, this is a very naive, very juvenile, very childish take on international affairs. I mean, international relations between countries, it's a Hobbesian world. It's a Hobbesian jungle, where might is always right, where countries don't treat each other fairly, where countries treat each other countries based on their strengths and weaknesses, where they take advantage of each other, especially a superpower. A superpower is bound to take advantage of a lesser power. Indians very wrongly, in the current dispensation, especially in the last 10 years, the Modi government, it has begun to see itself as a global hegemon, when it's not. It might be the 4th largest economy in the world, but at $4 trillion, its GDP is more than 4 times smaller in size compared to China's GDP of $18 trillion. And that is despite the fact that India has taken over China in terms of the largest number of people in the world. It has the highest population now in the world. But it's nowhere near China in terms of economic, technological, and military might.
With a grand show of force, marking 80 years since the end of World War II with its biggest ever military parade. We were there as the crowd of more than 50,000 waved Chinese flags, cheering as thousands of soldiers marched in perfect unison. Several hundred ground weapon systems on display, over 100 aircraft. And jets ripping through the sky above Tiananmen Square. The guests of honor, Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un with Xi together for the first time, watching over the parade from the balcony.
In fact, analysts, economists say that India would have to grow, its GDP would have to grow at 8% per annum in the next 20 years, and simultaneously China's GDP would have to grow at a measly 2% per annum in order for India to be at par with China. The chances of which happening are slim to none. So now this leads to 2 points. One is, as I was stating before, yes, India is being used as a tool, being used as a pawn. Why India, why not China, even though China is buying twice the amount of oil from Russia that India is? Because one, China has more leverage. China has more leverage because it exports critical rare earth minerals to the US, which are very important for the USA's military-industrial complex, and also for electronic vehicles and AI chips. India does not have such leverage. It primarily exports textiles, chemicals, jewelry, which may be important to the American consumer, but they're not critical. And items which are little more important to the American consumer, like electronics and pharmaceuticals, they're exempt from these 50% tariffs. Indian observers also state that Turkey imports Russian oil as well. Why is Turkey not being targeted? The reason is simple. Turkey is important to the US and the Middle East. India is not currently important to the US. And this brings me to my second point. Maybe Trump is not shooting from the hip. Maybe there's a change in policy. Maybe there's a change in how the establishment in the US looks at India, or will look at India for the next 2-3 decades. Because from 2000, when Bill Clinton visited India, to Trump 2.0 this year, India was a major strategic ally of the US, because the US, from Clinton's administration onwards, had begun to see India as a bulwark against the rising China. But maybe because of India's lackluster growth, and maybe as a peace offering of sorts to China, it may as well be that Trump is backing off from supporting India as a strategic ploy. And this is not a short-term decision. India is not a superpower. India is not a global hegemon. India is not even a regional power militarily. The beating it took from Pakistan, a country 10 times smaller than India, clearly proves that. So India should shun its haughty and its arrogant and its excessively proud approach to international relations. And the policymakers there should become more realistic, more pragmatic. They should understand, or at least begin to understand, their place in the Hobbesian jungle of the world order. And India it may be a very strong country, it may be a great power even, but it's way below China, and especially way below US in the pecking order. US is picking on India, is bullying India because it can. So if India continues to play like a superpower, it will get played by an actual superpower. India is getting played with. Trump wishes Modi happy birthday, but doesn't take the 50% tariffs back. He calls Modi a friend, but Modi is not attending the United Nations session this month because Trump does not want to meet with him. Instead, Trump is meeting with Pakistan's Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif. It seems like Trump is still not happy with Modi.
I don't think so, but I'm not happy. I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that, and I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that. I'll give you an update. I'm not happy with...
The only way for India to placate the United States, to make Donald Trump happy, is for Modi to give him credit for saving India from Pakistan's devastating attacks back in May. Because it is India's thanklessness that made Trump mad at Modi.